Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Champions Podcast with myself, Heather McCoy,
Champ Squires.
and today we are going to tackle a topic that may be a little bit interesting. I thought of this because I've kind of been seeing a trend lately with stuff I'm seeing on social media of just being overwhelmed or maybe having anxiety. And for me, I think there's definitely two parts of that you can have being a joyful overwhelmed, and then there's a bad overwhelmed. And so we're going to get Champ's perspective on that as well. Please excuse my eyes today. For some reason, the light sensitivity is really driving them nuts. And so we're going to get started. And so for me, I would explain that a joyful overwhelmed is, for example, when I got my kidney transplant, I was overwhelmed with joy that I was getting to live life. I was overwhelmed with joy that I was here. I was able to get back into the things that I want to do. A bad overwhelm may have been when I lost three of my good friends within a couple months. A bad overwhelm just may be daily life anxieties that you feel like you don't have control over, but the reality is, what I try to tell myself is you do have control. You have control of your mindset. You have control of your emotions. So, what I like to do is say, okay, I'm going to allow myself a little bit of time to feel this. Now, depending on what the matter is, it may last a few days. How much of a weight is that matter? Is it something that's going to matter 2 months from now? If the answer is no, then it's probably best to snap out of it and move on. So I think that everybody struggles with this to a level, and there's no right or wrong, and I want to make that clear that everybody deals with stress differently, everybody deals with what may be happening in life differently, and sometimes you can feel out of control. But I try, like I said, I try to remind myself I am in control. May not seem like it, but I am in control. And so Champ and I are both kind of like the people, we stay in such a positive mindset and way of thinking that it's hard for us to admit if we're feeling anxious or maybe have something going that we kind of really feeling the pressure from the stress. But I think that it's important for people to know that even if life is great and things are going well, it's okay to admit that there still may be some stress or anxiety or overwhelming emotions. With Champ being a pastor, he probably encounters this a lot with who he talks to of the levels that people are going through, the layers, the how they're dealing with it. And Champ and I have always been told we're kind of like therapists to people, but we're still human. And I don't know that we're necessarily therapists. We just learn how to kind of feel it, navigate it, and move on. So I wanted to ask Champ, what would a overwhelmed feeling feel for you in a negative and a positive way?
So I'm gonna start with the negative. I think for me as a pastor, and I hear people's struggles and their challenges all the time, and and when I say I hear their negatives or their struggles or the challenges, it's not like that's all they come to me with. Let me clarify that. But there is a lot of the the all of it. I mean, there's the high highs and the low lows. And so dealing with the negative overwhelm is acknowledging it, like you said, and then kind of saying, okay, what do I do with it? And I think it was Loriana that one of our previous episodes that said like acknowledging it and realizing what you feel, but not staying there. I heard I don't even remember a celebrity or somebody one time, or maybe it was a pastor, I don't remember, say it's okay to not be okay. It's just not okay to stay that way. Um, and you know, I've seen people that have been like in their negative overwhelms for days and sometimes weeks. And then they slowly begin to kind of move out of that. Um, and I think for me as a pastor, and I'm not saying that I do this well, full disclosure, but I think for me, from a pastoral perspective, I have to know and to realize that I can't, first of all, I'm not God. I didn't, I don't, God doesn't expect me to put all of this on myself. And I have to realize and know where to take it and where to lay it and where to leave it. And so that's kind of my whole take on that is knowing what it is, knowing where it comes from, um, knowing when you experience it, and then knowing how to process it, knowing that it's okay to feel it, talk about it, deal with it, and then knowing where to take it when it's time to move. And I think I think in this culture sometimes we're like, oh, you just gotta feel it and let no, you have control. You have control of what you allow yourself to feel. You have control of how you may not have control of what you feel, but here's what you do have control. You have a control of how you react to it. And nobody else can control that. And so that's kind of the negative. Now the positive overwhelmed. Um, the positive overwhelm for me, I try to stay in that sense of like just this kind of like smile on my face. I do because I don't stay home. I don't stay still. I'll never forget the first time I had COVID and the first time that I got sick in the pastoral role. And that is not person, that is a telemarketer, just FYI. Um, but I'll never forget the first time I got sick. And I'll go back to this in the negative, like that I got sick as a pastor. I got COVID. It was after the weekend of my cousin's wedding, and it kind of started going down our family like flies. And so that was the first time I'd ever had it. I'd never gotten sick since I'd been here. And when I say it knocked me back, it knocked me back. And so I didn't know. I'd been going. And then when I had to stop and sit still, I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. And I really had to teach myself how to like lean into the Lord, but also just kind of tell myself, as Heather says, like, you're gonna get through this too. And what are the places that you can find joy in? Can you listen to music because you can't be in front of people or be with people? Or can you find a book to read? Or can you take a journal and start journaling your thoughts and pride? And so you gotta figure out you. Um, people just give me the positive sense of overwhelmed. And I think for me, with that, like when you got your kidney, I will never forget that night, that morning. I didn't know until the next morning. I remember I was scrolling through Facebook or Instagram and I saw your thing and it looked like people had started sharing it religiously. And I thought, wait a minute, is she dying? And I just haven't been notified yet, or did something terrible happen? And then I went back and read it because I mean, it was after 10 people had shared it, and I was like, oh, this must be real big news. So I need to read it and not like just let my emotions go with the flow. And after I read the story and listened to the video, I was like, wait a minute, what just happened? Oh, she finally got the kidney. Oh crap. Okay. Let's start praying. Let's start sending it to the churches. Let's start letting people into that. Let's start sharing it more. Start feeling all I mean, like I'm a feeler. if you don't know. And so like I want to feel all of that. And so it's just a positive overwhelmed. It was a great experience. And Mom and I talked a little bit last week about uh, just kind of the experiences that we're on right now as a family celebrating with Leighton. And so like I'll never forget, Mom and I had an argument one time about how I thought he should propose, or how I thought I should be one of the first folks to know. And like, if it didn't happen this way, like that wasn't right. And so like now it's like our lives are consumed with the joy of him and Christina and what they're walking through. And like I love it. I am excited about it. I can't wait. I mean, I've ordered some stuff just for them for that day. And like, you would think it's like having a kid. And it's not, he's not my kid, he's my brother. But like, I want to feel as much of his joy as I possibly can. And I want us to kind of share that joy as a family because I know that we're gonna need that, and so it's kind of like storing it up because we're gonna have those moments of pure joy of overwhelming, and then we're gonna have probably those moments in the midst of all of that that are gonna be a little more bittersweet because there are people that are missing from the story, and so like you gotta prepare yourself, and I think and Kelsey would tell you right now that I am not a planner. It drives her crazy, but I'm like, I am preparing myself and planning for the good overwhelmed and the not so good. And so just knowing the balance and knowing where to go.
And I think too, how we tie this into maybe it's not the situation somebody has, maybe it's just, I saw this video from a celebrity that I follow the other day, and they were talking about scrolling through social media and having videos they really didn't ask for pop up. But yet it was something that they couldn't get their mind off of. And it's something that I've even practiced myself recently is only feeding myself and my soul positivity.
Mm,
Don't worry about how many views or what's being shared if it's got something negative to it. Now, obviously, somebody's sick and they're asking for prayer. That's a totally different thing. But the negative stuff, there's so much going in the world that people are feeling overwhelmed. And so you have to really ask yourself, is this harming me? Is it benefiting me? And how can I help myself through this? Because I believe so much in just feeding yourself positive. If you have to get up every day, and I know some people get up every day and they do affirmations, do it. You
mm,
just have to learn how to navigate through the good and the bad emotions so that you can better yourself. I believe so much in just using what we go through to better ourselves in some way. So
mm,
maybe you better yourself so that the next time you feel it, you deal with it better. But I think that so many people feel things and they just really don't know how to process, or maybe they feel silly for feeling that way. I mean, it's possible as well, and I know it may not help much coming from me and Champ to say, well, you just have to learn how to navigate through it. But I think that for me, I'm seeing so many people just saying, I've had to take a step back. I've had to feel overwhelmed. I can't take any more negative news. I can't, I'm dealing with so much. I don't even know how to process what I'm feeling. Can things get better?
mm,
When will things get better? And I think it's just each day at a time and just reminding yourself you're in control. And even though God's the main one in control, you're in control. But how
mm.
are you going to respond to things?
Exactly.
If you spy, it drives me crazy when I see these things on social media about joking about the crash out thing. And it's like, I see so many people with true mental health stuff that there's nothing funny about joking about crashing out. And I'm just thinking, like, when did it become that it has to be a joke about it? Because, these things really bother people. And I know I'm kind of on like a soapbox today with it, but I just really, my message that I prayed about this week for this episode was just letting people know wherever you are in life, whether you're the good overwhelmed, the bad overwhelmed, the good anxious, the bad anxious, to know it's okay, to know that you are not alone in the world, and that no matter if you're a champ and Heather that stay positive all the time and have an upbeat attitude, you're entitled to have a day that maybe you don't feel like that. Maybe you just want to sit in silence and,
Mm,
and pray your way through it.
mm,
Any of that's okay. Miss Monica just talked about in her episode about she wrote in her journal and
mm,
wrote out everything, even wrote out prayers.
mm,
At the time, she said things seem so bad, but they aren't now.
mm,
And it's
mm.
just something to reflect back on, whether it's writing, whether it's singing, whether it's
Art,
whatever.
painting,
Yeah.
whatever it is. There's a, and I want to talk about pain for a second on the bad overwhelmed because I think a lot of people wrestle with a lot of pain, whether it's mental pain or physical pain or grief. Grief is pain, and people tell me all the Lord, you talk about grief a lot because I think because I've dealt with it so much, and I deal with it on a pretty consistent basis. Um, my so when it comes to grief, one of the best things that I ever heard, there's a book I believe by Levi Lusko, and it's called Run Towards the Roar. And that book is about the story of his daughter who choked, and she was very young. And so he talks about that, he expounds upon the pain and the grief and well, did I do something wrong? Why did this happen? All those things. And then there's a gentleman by the name of Davy Blackburn who I know as an acquaintance. He actually lost his wife in Indiana. They were church planters, and his wife was brutally murdered, robbed and murdered in their home in Indiana back in, I think, 2014, 2015. And he tells a story in his book entitled Nothing is Wasted. It's on Amazon. I have a copy of it. I just haven't read it yet. And I've heard the story several times. But one of the things that he talks about in that book that has just stuck with me, and I tell people all the time when it references pain and grief, is he puts it in, and this is going to be kind of a gory picture, but he puts it in the picture of when he got home, his wife was face down in her own blood, and because of the brutality of that attack. And he says that for about a while, he wasn't able to like go back in their home because there was so much grief and so many things that kind of triggered him and made him think about those moments. And he said he had somebody say, "What would it look like for you, Davy, to go back to the exact spot that happened?" Now, granted, for some people this sounds like torture, but just bear with me for a minute. To go back to that spot and sit right there so that you could feel all of the weight of the pain, the grief, the bitterness, the anger, all of those things, and just kind of let it wash in some ways. Let it wash every, and then sit in it for a while, and then when you're ready to get up, get back up, get up, get on your feet, and walk back out the door. And those are that seems like a technique, and it might be, but it's just that moment or that process of like, okay, I've dealt with it, and it is what it is, and it hurts. It still hurts. It's still painful. Um, but I've allowed myself to feel. And some people, different people are taught to grieve in different ways. I've heard people say, well, as a kid, I was told not to cry. And I sit there and hear stuff like that, and I'm like, ugh, I would love to whoever told you that and just take them by, wring them by the neck and just let them know what I feel. But like and again, I didn't do things like that, but those are just some things that for some people have worked, and for me, in some ways, I've contributed some of that to my own healing journey through grief and pain. If you go back to the episode about several months ago now with Laura Bennett, I think about losing a son that I've never experienced, but she has, and then I think about losing a spouse in the bed with you from a massive heart attack. And I remember she had dad had been gone for about 4 months when her husband Bennett passed away, and I remember our first Christmas, and we had had a Christmas dinner here at the church, and she was there, and I was there, and we did all the things, the normal things. It was kind of a smaller crowd than we're used to. And I remember I left out of there, and I thought everybody just felt so cold and callous and dark. And I thought there was something wrong with me. I didn't know if anybody else felt that way. Maybe it was just a family ordeal or whatever the case may be. But I remember I walked out of there and thought, well, that was great. If that's what Christmas is going to be like this year, I don't want anything to do with it. But I remember the next morning, I was sitting right here where I am now, and my cell phone rings, and it was Laura because I told her to call me back or call me the next morning. And she did, and she asked me like, how is it in the brain and in the life of James Squires? And my exact words to her are, well, it's awful. I hate it. And that was that negative overwhelmed. Just overwhelmed with grief. It had almost been 6 months. It was going to be the first Christmas without dad. What in the world were we going to do? How are we going to do that? How are we going to balance his family and our family? Because, all of us.
To admit, like, I want people to realize the magnitude of you even like coming out and saying that is
It's
not
awful.
usual.
Yeah. And I think I told Heather yesterday when we kind of did a pre-planning for this episode, like I'm not saying that I always do that. Um, because there are times when there have been times this week, um, previous to this episode where I've just kind of been in like just a funk. Um, and I will say I have a friend of mine. We pretty much text every night and just like, how was your day? I mean, that's basically the magnitude of our conversation. And I'll say, I'm okay. And I'll sort of hit some, but I won't even hit anything. I'll just say, I'm okay. And then after a couple days, I'll think, I should have been more upfront and honest, but I couldn't. I couldn't bring myself to that point at that moment. But looking back, I'm thankful for the way that it unraveled. No, it may not have fixed the problem the way that I had hoped it would, or maybe I could have been or should have been more open and upfront. But just knowing yourself, and I could I could talk on this for days because here's the main point from me. I know Heather wants to just make sure that people know that everybody's there. My main takeaway from all of this is knowing the community of people around you and having the community of people. I don't care if you're an introvert. I don't care if you're an extrovert. And I just know that even if you're an introvert, do not ever say that you can do this on your own. even if you get more recharged by being by yourself, allow people to step in to the journey with you. Because if you don't, the healing and the restoration, and when people ask, you're not going to be able or well enough to process it because you haven't allowed yourself or encouraged yourself beforehand to deal with it. And so people say, "Well, I'm an introvert, so I like dealing with myself." Well, all well and good. I'm not opposed to that. But when you get out of it and people start asking you, how was that season? What did you go through? You're going to turn to them and say, I don't want to talk about it. And there may be some people that disagree with me on that, but I'm a stauncher for community. I am a self believing, not self believing, Christ believing, but constantly just entrenched in community. And
Be a
I will,
community that is not judgmental. So if somebody's judging you for whatever you're spilling off of your mind and heart, then that's not the people for you. And
yeah,
find that you can comfortably sit in a room and know that no matter what you say, you're not being judged, that they want to help you through it and be there, not criticize you for what you feel.
and the only other thing I'd say to that is being comfortable in the uncomfortable places of like sitting in a room and just being present. I told somebody the other night, I kind of, I think mine make healthy. I said, I kind of wish you were here. And she said, well, or they said, if, I don't even remember who it was, but they said, if I was there, we'd probably talk all night long. And I said, well, maybe not. What if it was just the fact that I needed your presence? What if it was just the fact that I needed you in the room, um, and just needed to know that somebody was there? Sometimes it's not about what you say, it's just about knowing that, like, somebody was in the room with me. I don't remember a lot of what people said the day Dad died, but I can tell you every single person that was in that hospital waiting room and in that hospital room with us. And I will never, ever, ever forget that. And people might say, well, that was just too much for me. Like I needed to be by myself so I could deal with it. Okay, do it, but go back, run back to community because yeah, them people that were in there probably did say a lot, but I had probably tuned some of them out. But I knew they were there, and yeah,
And I think anybody who is listening to this, that wherever they are in life, that they may be feeling something that they're not used to, or that they just wish that, man, I just wish this could stop today and me get back to my normal. Just know that we're praying that God gives you the strength and the encouragement you need and that push to get there. But to give yourself grace and to give others grace so that you can allow yourself that, and to know that you do have the control, as we talked about, you do have the control to get through it. But it's important to give yourself grace and to know that it will get better. Everything is temporary. It will get better. And so we know, like we said, this was kind of a different angle that than we normally do, but it's also important for us to not sit here and act like everything is just 24/7, you know,
yay!
yay, because it's life. It's life. It's life for everyone. And it doesn't mean that just because you go through that, that you're not grateful for life,
Mhm.
blessings. And so we hope that wherever you are, that today is better, tomorrow is better. And we are so grateful that we have a Savior that helps us through all of this and reminds us that we're worthy and that we're going to keep putting, as Miss Monica said the other day, we're going to keep moving forward. We're going to keep putting those foot one in front of the other to keep moving forward. And this too shall pass, is another thing she said. And so we are hoping y'all have a blessed week. Check back again next Friday. Every Friday we do an episode, so keep checking back. And we're excited that we're doing this to feature so many topics that we feel that there's endless topics that people may be experiencing. Even if we don't experience them ourselves, we like to feature them so that people can feel it's relatable. Everybody goes through something different.
And so that we can learn together.
Exactly. So we hope y'all enjoyed it and check us back next Friday. God bless you.
God bless y'all.